See,
With chocolate chips in it because I didn't have any butterscotch chips. It smells good.
Call the February 16th meeting of the Woodfin Board of Commissioners to order. First item be the invocation. Commissioner Honeycutt, would you do this, please?
Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for your blessings. We pray that you continue to bless and be with the town, bless the citizens, keep each one safe in this crazy time we're having. Pray that you'll go with the decisions that's made here with the board, that we'll take it seriously and do what's right, and that we'll remember you. Amen.
In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all town commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Also, does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before this board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote. Next item is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item is approval of the January 19th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item is the public forum. Public's invited to view this meeting of the town board via Zoom using this link. All documents related to agenda items not published on the website may be viewed in advance of the meetings in person at Town Hall, 90 Elk Mountain Road, Woodfin. Who's gonna read all the comments? You go. I guess we do them under public comment, the way we've set that up. Okay, on public comment, general public comments must be submitted in writing in advance of the meeting. Comments received before the meeting will be read into the record in the order they were received during this 15-minute period. Comments may be delivered to clerk@woodfinnc.gov, or you may deliver your comments to Town Hall during regular business hours. All comments to be read must be received by 12 noon on the day of the meeting. All comments received prior to the beginning of the meeting or by 5:00 p.m. on Tuesday, February 16th will be provided in writing to each board member. And I believe each board member's got a copy of all of the comments. Michael, how many do we have?
Quite a few. I'm just gonna read 15 minutes worth of them. I'm gonna set a timer.
Okay, we'll just,
All right.
are you ready?
Yep.
Okay,
First one's from a Patty Kieran. Hello, I would like to know if anyone on the board is opposed to the building at Richmond Hill. Also, what study, if any, has been done to the effects and impact on our French Broad River? This town needs more parks. Money will come, but building just to get money isn't always the smartest. I and my family are so against this. Please stop the project. Next is from a Uda Brandstatter. Town of Woodfin, I am writing to express my strong opposition to the Bluffs development, which is under consideration for approval by the town. As a Woodfin homeowner since 2004, I have a strong interest in maintaining the small town feeling and natural beauty of our town. Recently, there have been several exciting developments aimed at increasing the quality of life for Woodfin residents. These include the upcoming Woodfin Greenway, Silverline Park, and the Wave Whitewater Park. These projects are all positive additions for Woodfin, which encourage healthy lifestyles, pride in our town, and may also increase property values. The Bluffs would do the exact opposite, congesting narrow roadways, causing an environmental degradation, and taking away from the natural beauty of our area. Please don't trade our quality of life for the financial gains of a Florida developer. Thank you for allowing me to comment on this important issue. The actions you take today will impact our community for generations to come. Next is from a M. Bernardo. As a Woodfin resident, I firmly oppose this project. Apparently, the greed of the developer and the current town government is about to override the desire of its citizens. The deforestation, even under the developer's revised proposal, will impact our environment very negatively, and especially the French Broad River, which already has major issues. The theoretical bridge will also incur more damage, and the increase in traffic will not only affect Woodfin, but Asheville as well. Despite the figurative tax windfall, I seriously question Woodfin's ability to cover the expenses for police, fire, water, sewer, and other services the town will be expected to provide. This does not address the very important question of the quality of life for the current residents of Richmond Hill and future generations to come. I have seen no environmental studies from any entities such as the Army Corps of Engineers or the North Carolina DEQ, which must be done prior to any approval of permitting. Your populace is watching, ladies and gentlemen, and will avidly pursue your removal should you deny our wishes and move ahead with this project. This is from Robert McGee. Dear Woodfin Town Council, I have owned property in Woodfin at 5 Martell Lane for more than 20 years. I've also owned property near Richmond Hill for more than 20 years and at 11 Rolling Oaks for 12 years. I lived in the area on and off since 1974, about the time that Mayor Behan began to serve our area. I oppose the Bluffs for many reasons. Find it too big and in the wrong place. It would destroy so much of our area, which used to have the slogan "Cool Green Asheville" when I was growing up, but now seems to be all about grabbing a few dollars at any cost. The Bluffs project is being rushed without proper environmental and traffic studies, and without time for the proper amount of community input that the largest ever development in our area requires. The Bluffs threatens the French Broad River and the many investments that the town of Woodfin has made and has planned for the future, the Wave, Silverline Park, and others. The Bluffs plan to utilize Richmond Hill Drive during construction and later is absurd. The road is narrow and poorly maintained and cannot absorb large trucks and thousands of vehicles. Richmond Hill Park overflow parking will make it impossible for trucks to get through the narrow lane. Woodfin has no jurisdiction over this road and so will not be able to get people to move their cars. Furthermore, it is unfair to long-term citizens of Richmond Hill to be asked to live substandard inhuman lives for 5 years of construction. I don't know about you, but I can't even stand to hear my neighbor hammering for a few hours on a Sunday afternoon. There are people who have been in this neighborhood for 40, 50, and even 60 years. They have made a commitment. They are not speculators or house flippers. They live here with their children and grandchildren, and we must not diminish their lives. The Bluffs development is not in harmony with the current Richmond Hill neighborhood. If any development happens on that land, it should be low-density, single-family residential like the rest of the area. Otherwise, we are setting up an area for many other troubles not related to traffic and environmental issues. The Bluffs developer has never completed a project in North Carolina. He has said publicly when interviewed by TV and newspapers that he wants to be a good neighbor and that he never planned to do the project without a bridge, and yet he has told several of us point blank that he will start the project the moment it is approved. Bridge or no bridge, this seems reckless and antagonistic to me. We should not approve the Bluffs, nor should we allow annexation. Why not put a one-year moratorium on large developments since we have been unable to meet in person during the pandemic? A decision this large requires conversation, not emails and 3-minute sound bites. There could be major troubles down the line if we do not demand that John Holsworth commit to his bridge before any construction begins. Oh. What if he never builds the bridge and Woodfin must build it? That seems like a potentially bankrupting situation. John Holsworth himself has a past bankruptcy in Yancey County related to 140 acres of undeveloped land, and that should be looked into as well. If there's no bridge, how will our Woodfin Fire Department service the massive Bluffs community that is going to be Woodfin's responsibility? The Bluffs does not address our need for affordable housing. It does not enrich the community in any way other than short-term economic gain, which might cost us so much more in the future. This is an absolute disaster in the making. Please postpone any decisions on the Bluffs. No bridge, no Bluffs. If you love our area, please let us take our time and get this right. This is from a Jesse Connor. To be read as a public comment. All right. I live on Richmond Hill Drive. I learned of this project while walking my dog and seeing a tiny out of the way sign about a rezoning meeting next to a forest near Richmond Hill Park. I oppose the developments for several reasons. I worry about walking my dog with the increase of traffic that will occur in my neighborhood. First with the construction vehicles and then the residents. The road at the entrance to Richmond Hill is already treacherous. Will there be sidewalks? Will the developer then petition to widen the road, taking our front yards? I enjoy the walkability to the park. I feel that will be lost. Does Woodfin have a plan in place to deal with the increase of traffic on Riverside Drive when this bridge is built and the thousands of residents move to the Bluffs? Riverside Drive will become a nightmare. I can see how to expand the road. It is likely for ease of getting to the interstate or other major thoroughfares. Our new neighbors are going to go through Richmond Hill Drive. I also worry about the deforestation that will occur. I know developers want to save as much trees as possible, but I've seen too many areas clear cut for ease. How will that not occur here? I finally am concerned about the environmental impact on the French Broad River. With all the tree removal and earth moving, where will all the runoff go? I urge the town of Woodfin to carefully decide the next steps with residents in mind. Next is a Joanne Lawrenson. I'm writing to you to beg you to stop the gigantic apartment complex planned for your town. This is a horrifying destruction of our environment in neighborhoods of Western North Carolina, Buncombe County, Asheville. It is completely irresponsible of you to proceed with this mega development. It smacks of greed and power. Surely you are better than this. I know you have heard all the reasons you should not allow this Florida developer to ruin our area for the sake of money and greed. So I will not elaborate here. I do not even live near Richmond Hill, but this sickens and enrages me. I have so far made 2 donations to the GoFundMe campaign because I feel so strongly about this. For once, I hope to see government officials do the right thing. It's the same guy. It's the same email. That's why I'm skipping it. This is from Ben Saylor. The Bluffs at Riverbend endangers the characters of Woodfin and directly damages our efforts to preserve the scenery and parkland on which the town is attempting to build its economic future. Also embarrassingly, the project won't pay for itself in tax revenue and will be a burden to the town's municipalities. I would strongly encourage the town to stop approving developments until we have finished revising our land use planning. Your constituents are aware of your lack of leadership and transparency on this project and expect more moving forward. Next is a Catherine Day. I'm opposed to the bluffs on Riverbend development. While I respect property owners' rights to develop their land, the scope and size of the bluffs cannot be accommodated within existing infrastructure. This is a case of consequences outweighing rewards, and it is the role of local government to represent the public good in just these instances. Furthermore, I protest how public comment is being limited with format changes in the 2/16/21 meeting of the Woodfin Town Commission. I request that a summary of opposed versus support comments is provided and that another total is given for people who can complain about this public comment process. Next is from a Stephen Hooper. Absolutely not. Woodfin works fine as a small adjacent township to Asheville, but installing a project like this, marring the landscape of the French Broad River is disgusting and money grubbing. This popularity bubble of Asheville will burst at some point and there will be a lot of empty hotels, which will be lovely as a ruin in 30 years along the river. Of course, the developer is from Florida. When hasn't Florida attempted to ruin North Carolina? Stop this now. Next is a Ben Steer. Hope this finds you all well. My name is Ben Steer. My family and I live at 99 Richmond Hill Drive in Asheville. I am writing to express my concern about the Bluffs at Riverbend project. This development will have negative impacts on the very environment that draws people into Woodfin. I would reduce our urban tree canopy, increase traffic, and pollute the French Broad River during and after construction. The impact that this will have on the already degraded water quality will be detrimental to the planned Whitewater Park. For a comparison, I urge the city council members to review the July 22nd Asheville Citizens Times coverage of hillside construction of a 500-unit apartment complex near Western Carolina University where I teach. In that case, an out-of-town developer allowed a foot of sediment from construction runoff to pour into Long Branch Creek and then into the Tuskegee River. This resulted in a temporary shutdown of construction, fines to the developer, and degradation to waterways in Jackson County. It is not hard to imagine a similar situation here. I know from firsthand experience that the roads that will be impacted by this development, especially Riverside Drive and Richmond Hill Drive, struggle to handle the current volume of traffic. Even if the planned bridge for this development is constructed, the addition of some 1,500 luxury residential condo units and additional office and retail buildings will increase the volume of traffic in our neighborhood and possibly lead to bottlenecks at Richmond Hill Drive and Riverside Drive. My family and I have 2 young children, one with special needs, and I worry for their safety if our street becomes a de facto back entrance for this development. I'm also concerned about possible negative impacts to historical and archaeological resources in the project area. I'm an associate professor of anthropology at Western Carolina University. I've worked on archaeological research projects in the mountains of Western North Carolina since 2005. This project is located at a prominent bend of a major river. Archaeological sites are often located in settings like this. There is a potential for this project to disturb previously unrecorded historical and archaeological sites. The negative impact that this massive development will have on environmental and cultural resources in Woodfin and Asheville and on the Richmond Hill neighborhood and surrounding areas has not been assessed. We all need more information before this rezoning is approved. I would urge the town of Woodfin to reconsider this development. Next is from a Liz Hurlbut. As a property owner on Green Oak Road, I would like the commissioners to know that I oppose the Bluffs development in our community. Demolishing land here for the profit of a Florida developer is opposite of why I bought my home in Woodfin in 2015. Our community's footprint this far has been thoughtfully developed with single-family homes and respect for our waterway, the established trees, and considerate uses of land. This is from a Travis Keller. My name is Travis Keller. My wife and I live in Richmond Hill community, just up the road from Richmond Hill Park and the site of the proposed Bluffs development. To you, I suppose I'm just another name on yet another sheet of paper, and I understand that inclination. As I imagine this whole process involves a lot of paper with a lot of different names. That said, I have tried to look at this development proposal from your perspective. So I would ask that you try to look at it from mine and from that of my neighbors and from the residents of your own town as well. For they too feel overlooked. These are the people you serve, people you know and live amongst, people you call friends and neighbors, the people who elected you to office because they felt they could trust you to look out for their best interests. John Holdsworth is, I'm just going to finish reading this one. John Holdsworth is not one of those people. He doesn't live in Woodfin. He doesn't live in Asheville. And though he owns a vacation home in Burnsville, he doesn't live there either. He lives in Florida, and yet he has set his sight on both Woodfin and Asheville, and in particular on the nearly 100 acres of native forest and wildlife habitat he intends to develop. A mega development is what it is, the scale of which this region has never seen. I understand the various positive temporary impacts this development would have on permanent. Sorry, I lost my place. Would have on Woodfin with regards to the influx of cash, short-term jobs and population. But I don't think you understand the permanent impact this development would have both on Woodfin and Asheville and the people that do in fact live here. Several residents of both Asheville and Woodfin called into the Asheville City Council virtual town hall meeting last week to voice their opposition to the Bluffs. Development among them was a resident of Woodfin whose name I cannot remember, but whose testament I cannot forget. She is a young mother and a nurse, a profession which, in the wake of the global COVID-19 pandemic, we all owe the deepest debt of gratitude. And she spoke from a place of anguish and despair, and this, in so many words, is what she had to say. We are working class people. We have worked hard, overcome obstacles, and pinched pennies to get where we are, to pursue our dreams and make lives for ourselves and our loved ones in our communities. And when it gets down to it, if this development goes through, if you allow it to go through, then you will have betrayed us, because at the end of the day, we couldn't afford to live in Holdsworth Victorian style luxury apartment buildings if you wanted to, and that's all there is to it. Woodfin's town slogan is where community matters, so please, from your position of power in our time of need, think of us, your friends and neighbors, and not an out-of-state, out-of-touch developer. Our communities don't matter, but they matter to us.
Okay. Everybody's got a copy. In addition, there's a few more that's here, but some of them are written 2 or 3 times by the same individual, I noticed. But anyway, you've got them and you can read them at your convenience. Do we have any more public comment from anyone? Okay, moving on to new business. Before we get into new business, I'm going to have Eric to introduce a new employee we've got.
We have with us tonight Sherry Powers, who comes to us from Buncombe County, also from the city of Asheville. She's been in the area for a while. She has a career in public service and in public service finance. She was the business manager for the sheriff's office most recently, where I had the pleasure of working with Sherry for several years. She knows her quite well. So we're very happy to have her here with us tonight. Her family is from Woodfin and has property here in Woodfin as well. So she's known to Woodfin and knows Woodfin as much as we know her. So we're happy to have her. Today's her first day. So it's a long first day. She's a trooper. So we're very glad to have her. Thank you, Sherry. Welcome.
Well, we're glad to have you. We'll give you the next 30 minutes to tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Glad to be here. Eric did a good job, said it all. I've worked in government for most of my career, a lot of years, since the 1980s, so we won't count how many years it is, but I'm happy to be here and hope I'll be a benefit to the town.
I was telling her today, I've had a few Incidentally, got another phone call about you after we talked, but people want to know why we're stealing county employees. That's life. So, anyway, glad to have you on board, Sherry. And I know if you've not connected her yet, she's the daughter of Robert Powers, who used to be the chairman of P&Z board. Built a nice shopping center out the way out here, and
Built the ABC store.
yeah, the ABC store. And in spite of Hensley up here, they got it built.
Pardon me. I enjoyed working with him on that.
Anyway, moving on to recognition of Sergeant Jonathan Ammons, who is the 2020 Woodfin Police Officer of the Year.
Wow.
Come on in here, you can't hide outside.
Lurking, that's it.
Yeah.
Welcome to committee, you might,
Well, it is kind of over here.
more than welcome to.
Yeah, come on in.
I'd like to make a comment. No, I'll be, I won't.
Go ahead. Don't get us arrested till the meeting's over. Yeah, I love those donuts.
Great. Duck Donuts. There we
That's
go. Okay, well, I'm here to present to Sergeant Jonathan Ammons our 2020 Woodfin Police Officer of the Year Award. Now, the Officer of the Year award is actually chosen by his colleagues in the department. I don't get a say in this one, actually. They choose amongst themselves by secret ballot, and the majority of votes this year, and very overwhelmingly and well-deserved, I feel, went to Sergeant Ammons. Sergeant Ammons joined us in 2007. Yes. I want to say 06, but 07. Getting old. I forget these
Hey,
things.
I was working with you guys while I was at Weaverville. So
That's
it's okay.
true. And he did come from the Weedville Police Department. Has worked in investigations and has been sergeant here for a couple years now. And this is actually Sergeant Ammons' second time winning the Officer of the Year award. On a personal level, I would say that I couldn't agree more with the choice. He really is a driving force behind this department. He has a lot of heart. And though he might not show it well, he really has a lot of compassion for the folks that he works with and for. He gets called mean a few times. And I think it's because he is so intent on doing things right and doing things well that people just don't think that he's looking out for their best interest when he really is. And I'm so grateful for everything he does. He keeps me on my toes, and I'm thankful for it. So I present to you, Sergeant Ammons, this plaque for the 2020 Woodfin Police Department Officer of the Year.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that.
All right. And then his name will also go onto our composite of the Officers of the Year that we've started since 2009. You on here? Oh, look, he went back in 2014. So he's on here twice now. To the bottom row each time.
Hey, I'm used to being on.
So again, congratulations.
Thank you, Chief.
Before we hear from Jonathan, I noticed, I don't know if you got a good picture or not. You want to hold up the plaque, the two of you, and let him get a good picture?
Yeah, if you want to see this face.
Put him in front of the flag back there.
Yeah, it's
Pretty
pretty
bad.
bad.
Photos after, well, later.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. I do have some words. I will try to make it quick. I already talked to the mayor, Mr. Hardy, and the chief about this. So, as Chief was talking about, I do have a hard time expressing my compassion for my officers. So that's one of the things I want to talk about today. So to start off, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Thank you, commissioners. I am both honored and humbled by the selection for a 2020 Officer of the Year award. I am honored that the officers felt that I deserved this when so many of them deserve this honor above me. I have seen a lot in my 14 years with the department, and I feel it's necessary to say a few words about our officers the true officers of the year who should carry this every single day. This will be long, like I said, but I will try to hurry. As I know time is precious and 2020 was a terrible year, so who better to represent the 2020 officer of the year? So with COVID, everybody has struggled and so I wanted to say a few things here about that. I've witnessed bravery and perseverance when other officers that I've worked with have breached rooms with armed assailants and came out with both parties unscathed. I've seen compassion, love, and empathy that our officers have shown adults and juveniles when they're at their wits' end and want to run away from their lives. I have witnessed a brotherhood that I have not seen in this department since about 2010. An indivisible brotherhood of officers willing to lay down their lives for fellow officers and place themselves in harm's way for the protection of this Woodfin community. I have bled, cried, grieved, and most of all, remained steadfast with our efforts to remain unified and complete the task at hand. Unlike other communities and groups of commissioners that have made it apparent that this year to not support their officers, you all have stepped forward to provide support for our officers, which means so much to each one of us individually. The efforts that you have done this year, especially, have meant so much to us. So I want to say personally, thank you. I'd like to list a few people as well. And I've said it was long, but I'm trying to hurry here. So the names of the new are going to go in order from the newest officers. We have Sergeant Andrew Arthur over here that I'm getting to know. So I didn't write a whole lot about him. I'll let you know how it goes. So he's had this pleasure of riding with me and me riding with him every day. So he gets to know the town. So Officer Ian Bradley was here. He shows up every day with a smile on his face and a positive attitude and a drive to work. Officer Joshua Myrick, who is not here, is taking over the responsibility of handling chef and has an attitude to push himself and other officers to do their best every day. Officer Brad Wright, who's coming in tonight, handles pressure and never gives up. And even in dangerous situations, I've seen him stay extremely calm. Officer Matthew Buckner always has a smile and is willing to go above and beyond to make sure you feel appreciated. When my wife's grandmother died, he went out and brought me gobs of food for my family, just out of nowhere. He just started here. Officer Colby Mahaffey, never-ending drive and a positive attitude that's addicting. Officer Sasaki, who every day goes out of his way to put in work to make Woodford safer without complaint. And there he is right there. Officer Jason Gregg, who I've had the pleasure of watching develop to such an outstanding officer. Officer Gregg would fight through any injury to help his fellow man. And this one's going to hit hard, so I'm probably going to cry. So I'll try to do my best. I talked to Officer Clint Teague on the way here to make sure he was okay with me talking about this, but he's just like every one of these other officers that I've grown close to. He has overcome so much and sacrificed so much more than any of the rest of us. He's a great officer and protector. And when his wife Candy was sick, he sacrificed time with her to be here to cover shifts as well as working his own shifts. Officer Teague lost Candy last year and inspired others to take care of their family first. And it has had a profound effect on me. Sorry about that. And then we have former Detective Harris and current Detective Morrow, who work tirelessly to clean up after us and make sure that everything is good to go. The award shouldn't be for supervisors, and because we're the ones that are awarded every day by watching these young men sacrifice and love each other every day. I've learned so much from these men, and I have the privilege to serve them. They mean the world to me, and I'll accept this award in front of you, the Board of Commissioners, Mr. Hardy and Chief Dykes, although I'll accept it on behalf of the true heroes and the ones that should be recognized instead of me. We have supervisors from the top down, Chief Dykes, Lieutenant Ammons, Sergeant Miller. These officers know how much you do for them. And being in middle management, I've had the unique opportunity to learn from both sides of the rank and file. I've seen a lot of turnover and change with this in this department. But one thing that remains true is the devotion that these officers, past, present, and future, will and have given to this Woodfin community. And these are just a glimpse of the wonderful officers that I have the pleasure of serving this town with. Thank you. It was going to be long.
Jonathan, before you get out of here, you and the other officers, we had a conversation this afternoon about something that struck me yesterday. I believe it was yesterday when I read the paper. Talking about, and I don't know if it was on the state level or the local level or both, but how stupid it is that they haven't designated law enforcement officers as a priority to get a COVID vaccination. It's absolutely stupid. I don't care if it's the governor that did it or the Buncombe County Health Department or the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners or all three of them together. I think it's a disgrace to these people. How many people, and I don't care if you're dealing with some of the other people that's had priorities, but how many people would want to go out here where you've got maybe somebody who's overdosed on something? They may be at one of these homeless camps. They may be having other kind of problems or whatever. And here they are out there with just a mask. And I think that this board, I'd like for the board to give me permission to write a letter to all three of them and tell them how damn stupid they are for not designating law enforcement to have a priority item. And I put them above, and no offense, but I put them, when you read the guidelines from Washington or whatever, right up there, even amongst school teachers.
Yeah,
I
I agree.
agree.
Just
You
maybe
know-
don't use the stupid word, come a little bit more appropriate.
The stupid word applies to the people that wrote the policy. But anyway, that's, it's time that the public do something about this and get them so they can get their vaccination. And
Yeah, I agree.
that's just the way I feel about that.
Like a straw poll or make that a motion.
Either way,
Agreement is good enough. You got my agreement. You got my agreement.
okay.
If they want one, they should.
I agree. And whatever verbiage you feel is appropriate.
Okay.
We vote for leaving the idiot part in there.
Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, next item, annexation agreement, Eric.
All right, so the next item on the agenda relates to an annexation agreement with the town of Weaverville. The town of Woodfin, along with the town of Weaverville, had an annexation agreement in place that has since lapsed. And we need to have an annexation agreement in place. One of the things that it permits us to do is to do satellite annexations subsequent to the execution of this agreement. The thing that it does just in general, though, is it does just help us to avoid confusion as to the intents of each town. And so there's a map in your packet which shows the areas for the respective areas for Weaverville and for Woodfin that should these properties wish to be annexed, these just establish our claims to those as to who would have the first right of consideration. This is not all of the area that could be considered, but this is the areas where our towns abut. And so it was intended to be a starting point for that discussion. And this is the map that Weaverville has agreed to as well. It's not much change from the last time. There's a few areas that were added on the Weaverville side to the north from the last map. The agreement that you'll be entering into will be for a term of 5 years. So in 5 years, there'll be another pass at this. And that's really the extent of the purpose and the nature of this particular annexation agreement, this item on your agenda. So, any questions? that you may have?
Weaverville passed theirs yet.
They have not. They have held a public hearing, and then they will vote next week on it. So because of the minimum 24-hour time requirement between the hearing and the vote due to COVID and the virtual meeting, that was their duration. Was they said from January, we will continue this item. They will pick it up in February and vote on it then. So this board may do the same thing. We could pick this back up in March and you all could vote on it then, or you can call a meeting after 24 hours from the time of this meeting.
Okay, so we're ready for the public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, at this time I'll open the public hearing on annexation agreement between the towns of Woodfin and Weaverville. Do we have anyone wishing to comment?
And there were no comments received in writing. However, people are welcome to submit their comments in writing now, and that's the purpose of at least the 24 hours. So we would invite folks to comment.
Okay, any comments from the public that are present? Okay, hearing none, I'll close this public hearing at 7:10 p.m.
And do you want to schedule a vote on that
Mayor, I
now?
have one question, please.
Sir.
Okay.
How does this differ, or does this differ from the annexation agreement we had that expired?
The only difference really is the map and the duration. The other one was for a term of 6 years for some reason. And then the map changed. Again, the north section of the Weaverville portion is what I think was the change on the map, material change on the map. The terms haven't changed. Nothing else about the agreement has changed other than the duration and the actual area.
Duration being?
5 years as opposed to the 6 years which was the old one.
I'm good, thank you.
So we got to wait at least 24 hours, so I know you discussed maybe having that with a work session, so.
So we'll have a meeting in 2 weeks.
Wait on you for that.
We can do that. So that would be on March the 2nd, that we'll talk about in a few minutes.
Okay, next item is an annexation. Eric?
This one I think is Adrian.
So this is a voluntary non-contiguous annexation petition for Sourwood Land Holdings LLC. The original petition was submitted by Constant Mills Perry for a 100-acre lot in October of 2019. The certificate of sufficiency was provided by the clerk at the November 2019 meeting, and a public hearing was called for, but subsequently pulled off the agenda. So this is the public hearing for that original petition that was received in October of 2019. And I have a map to show you the approximate location. The little red dot here.
See it on there. So what slide number is that?
Oh.
In your slide.
8.
This slide number 8.
Slide number 8. Any questions about that?
I think I read in the pack, we're not doing trash service or roads or anything with them.
There's no commitment of services at this point in time. The town is obligated to provide services once it is annexed, however. So there is a requirement to do that.
How far is it from?
And having said that, the town does not provide trash pickup for non-residential.
Okay.
So the services the town does provide is street lighting, law enforcement, generally trash, planning and zoning, so code enforcement is a service that's provided. Those are the typical ones that come to mind, the town would provide.
Are there any streets that we're taking in it?
All private, off the main, this would be a DOT, state maintained road, which is off Mount Scenic Highway.
Okay, so one more time, no trash, no street. We would provide police service. And that's all I heard. Is that right?
Yeah, but what if they decide in the future they want trash service?
We don't provide,
Commercial business.
That's commercial, so we wouldn't provide it anyway.
but to your point though, should that land be developed into something, then that would open up so that we would be providing residential, if there's residential development there. I have no idea what is planned for that, or if anything is planned for that, but it's a possibility.
Okay.
Exactly how far is it from the city limits today?
I don't have the exact number, but it's a little over 2 miles.
Thank you.
2 miles
Yeah.
It's a beautiful drive up there
going which way?
It's awful crooked too.
off of Elk Mountain Scenic.
I mean, you talking about going out Merriman Avenue or through Weaverville? If you go out Merriman Avenue, Google Maps says it's a little over 8 miles. It's 21 minutes normal drive time. So-
This is just from the corporate limits as a crow flies based
Yeah.
on the statute, but
Okay, well, I'm looking at like from this location to drive to there.
I don't know. I don't have that information, but it would definitely be more than 2 miles.
The crow fly would be quick. If you drive those roads, I mean, they're beautiful, but it's like
Yeah.
going down to the,
It's closer.
they're real windy.
Weaverville and the
I
golf
mean,
course up there.
I guess if
Just
this
across
board
the
wanted
valley.
to, if
Yeah,
that did
I've been
ever
up to it.
get,
It's a pretty good
residential.
drive.
Gorgeous, yeah.
we could have a say-so in providing services or not, couldn't we, before we issued a permit?
You would be obligated to provide services.
We would have to,
And you'd be obligated to provide the services that are provided to other similar properties there.
Yeah.
Would be the requirement. Now, it doesn't mean that we would have to drive our trucks up there. We might pay someone to pick up trash.
independent
So different
contractor.
ways to do that, but the service would need to be provided.
Has everybody been up there?
Mhm.
I have.
Aye.
It's pretty.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I mean, I guess my concern is the road going into that.
Oh, that's their responsibility. It's not ours.
What about police officer? Will we have to put another police officer on for that?
That's a great question. That's a great question.
Okay.
So the distance to get to there versus getting to Olivet, for example, another corner, would probably be not much different.
I wouldn't think we'd have to put one on just to cover that.
Okay.
But we would need to provide the service, the response, but that may be through mutual aid with the sheriff's office.
That could be agreement with the sheriff's department. But what is the tax value of this property?
I don't know.
That property was built by Dr. Burkhart, and then he passed away and his daughter and son-in-law inherited it. And then they sold it to this couple that's got it now. And they approached us because they want to
ABC.
start serving mixed drinks.
ABC. I'm not opposed to it.
There's your another customer.
I'm not opposed to it. I'm just- Joe's got GO somewhere.
It's a beautiful building, Doug.
Oh, it is,
The
yeah.
restaurant's beautiful and they have, it's like a bed and breakfast kind of thing, I mean, near Airbnb. You can stay there all night and stuff.
That's when all of the leaves on the trees, it's
Yeah,
just,
it's beautiful.
yeah.
Made the mistake of going up there back last winter when it first come on the agenda. And those roads
Yeah, I agree.
were off. Of course, it wasn't that bad down here, but just from the altitude, I guess.
And it'll stay that way too. It's probably on the
It's on
It's
on the north side of
It's
it, yeah.
way out.
Tax value,
Yes.
Mr. Hensley, tax value is
It's
$2.779
It's too far out for me.
million.
How much?
2.779, 2.8 million roughly.
Rick, you live up that way, don't you? You live off of Robin Hood.
I used to, I moved to off Williams Creek. Now, So I can look up there and see this property.
Yeah, you can get to it that way.
It's always in frost.
Look that way and see that property, look the other way and see the wall.
That's the damn truth.
See, you have Beaver Dam.
Yeah.
And that's
That's what I
where
thought
it-
you
yeah,
do.
yeah, you can go up that way too.
Okay, any other questions?
I wouldn't go around the Rims Creek. That way.
No, I go up there.
Go Beaver Dam that way.
So this is another one then with a public hearing and then 24-hour minimum wait.
Okay, you got anything else before I open the public hearing? Okay, at this time I'll open the public hearing on a voluntary non-contiguous annexation petition by Sourwood Land Holdings LLC. Do we have anyone wishes to speak to this at this hearing? Have anyone wishes to speak regarding this voluntary annexation? Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing at 7:20 PM. We'll have to vote on that at the same time we do the other.
Said March 2nd.
1 second.
Next item, consideration of appointment of officials. Eric?
The first appointment, we have a vacancy in our town clerk position currently. So we'd like to take care of that tonight too. Town is authorized by law to appoint a clerk, and it is the town board's authority under which that happens. So the recommendation is to appoint a deputy town clerk, which is also authorized by law, and to have that position then coexist with the planning director position. So that's the request for you. What this would do is if there is a turnover again in the future, then we'd have that deputy clerk ready to step in and fill that duty. We will be recruiting to fill this position, but we have not started on that yet. I'm working with our new finance director to finalize the job description, and then we will be publishing that shortly.
Okay, to have a motion to designate the planning director as the deputy town clerk.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item is zoning administrator and subdivision administrator, town planner.
So kind of following suit, just to make sure we have officials appointed as we should by the ordinance and statute. I would like to recommend making the planner position the zoning administrator. That position is going to have the skills, knowledge, and ability to do that. And of course, Michael does. So we'll leave that with him. As part of that, the subdivision administrator, the zoning administrator also serves as a subdivision administrator. So that's why they're both listed there. Not to say I wouldn't be here to help him with what he's working on, but I just want to have an official designation as the planner, as the zoning administrator.
Have a motion to honor this request.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? You okay with being drafted?
On the job training. right?
Yeah. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? Done. Next is presentation regarding compliance with NCGS 160D.
So I just wanted to give you guys a brief update on 160D legislation, and as part of that, the ordinance update that we've talked about. So I don't know how familiar you are with 160D, so I just wanted to give you a brief background on what that is. It used to be two separate articles of the general statutes, one being for cities and one being for counties. So this new chapter has consolidated those two articles into one chapter for land use law. A lot of the information was identical, so instead of having it separated, they put it into one area. There's not, there is some further clarification on land use practices in the new statute, but there's not a whole lot of substantive changes with that. So the changes that are in there, local ordinances have to be updated. The original plan, or the original deadline for that was January 21. But with COVID and legislation that came out of COVID, that date has been moved to July 21. My target goal is April of 21. So I'm going to be sending you you're going to have fun listening to me talk about land use law for a couple months. And hopefully we can get that on the books by the end of April. The School of Government offers a code scan service. So I'm looking at utilizing them to, after I make the recommended changes, send it to the School of Government for review so we can make sure it's in compliance. Just some examples of the changes that are in 160D. What you know as conditional use permits is now referred to as special use permits. So all the ordinance language has to change to special use. There's broadened conflict of interest standards for appointed boards and staff members. So language for that will be added to the ordinance. There's some additional authority for administrative minor modifications to variances and rezonings that have been approved by the board. So I'll bring you some more information about that, but it would be just reorganization of a plat, or if they, hit a bump and need to move a building, staff's able to make those changes and they don't have to come back to the board for approval. And then it provides clear authority for conditional zoning and some other things that will probably be part of the language that's added to the ordinance. But another reason I wanted to bring this up today was the initial recommendation I'm going to bring to you guys is to split the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustment into two boards. The new statute clearly lays out the roles and responsibilities for those boards. So I think it's important that we make sure we have people in the position to carry out those roles and responsibilities that are clearly laid out.
It used to be that way.
Yeah. So in this initial round, and in the information you got in your packet, there was a breakdown of the differences in the boards. I don't know if you got a chance to look at that. Slide 12 shows that the Board of Adjustment handles all the quasi-judicial issues. So that would be all the variances, all the special use permits, any appeals that we have to deal with. That's what they would focus on. And the planning board is going to be more legislative/advisory. So they're going to be looking at the rezonings, the subdivision approvals, and any text amendments to the ordinance. So with that recommendation that I would bring to you later, so you don't need to make any vote tonight, but with that recommendation, I'd like to make the initial 160D changes based on the deadline that we have of July 1st, of just the procedural kind of changes. And then when we get the planning board in place and trained, we can go through the ordinance with the fine tooth comb and make all the other changes that we think need to be made to the ordinance. But that way we make sure it's a comprehensive review of the ordinance.
Is that the way Buncombe County has it set up, two separate, okay, and the city of Asheville?
Mhm. So that's my presentation. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what be coming towards you in the next couple of months. See if you have any questions or comments.
Were you going to have some classes, some workshops you talked about doing? Still planning on doing that?
If we can get, timing's been an issue with getting that done. But if you guys decide that this recommendation can go through, that's the first thing I would do with the boards is provide some training on what their roles are.
I think that would be helpful.
One thing I'd like to see, and I don't want to create no more work for you a lot, I know we don't have a say or a vote in a lot that goes on at planning and zoning. But sometimes some of this is a surprise to me. I was wondering if we could at least get an email or something, maybe not about everything that goes through planning and zoning, but something that you might feel like that controversial or,
Well, when we start meeting again, we haven't met in a couple months, but when we start meeting again, I'll be giving you a report of that at this meeting. And then I can also email you too, if that helps, but I definitely want to keep you in the loop on what's happening.
So we could ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
yeah.
be very helpful
Mhm.
ahead of time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Next item, presentation regarding formation of a Parks and Greenways Advisory Committee. Eric?
So this is the final item on the regular agenda tonight before we get into our reports. One of the first things that a couple of you told me when I started was we wanted to look ahead to forming a Parks Advisory Committee. So this has been in the air. You all have discussed this in the past.
And it's part of one of our grants. They're required to do
It's
it.
exactly, and it is also a scoring tool that we can use to increase the likelihood of getting future grants as well. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you about this tonight and forming and standing up a Parks and Greenways Advisory Committee. The town is clearly, the voice has been heard. We're making major investments along the river now in our park assets. So the timing seems right for that reason, if for no other reason. The town's identity is going to be in the future closely linked and identified with recreational assets. We are focusing on the river, the restoration of the riverbank and improvements along the river. Again, help for our grant application scoring is another reason why we want to consider this now, as we're looking at several of those deadlines coming up later this year. We have a lot of work still to do in developing and realizing those parks. And so some assistance with project management or oversight in particular. So other sets of eyes and ears on the project to anticipate any problems, whether it be to tweak design or to anticipate any problems with construction would be very, very advantageous to those of us who are working on the project management side, Commissioner Lunsford and Vice Mayor Giesentanner. So this body would help us with that as well. And then finally, we are working toward a contract for the design of Riverside Park and the Whitewater Wave. And as part of that submittal, the firm that we're working with most closely right now, the only one that we're working on right now, has requested or recommended a body like this, that there will be a sounding board and a channel for public input into the design and the execution of that project and those plans. So again, this board would be providing some project oversight for the Greenway and Blueway, also some advocacy and public engagement as we're working through this development of this system. So those are more short-term interests and focuses for this particular advisory committee. More long-term, they would help us determine how we want to weigh out budget recommendations for our park system, looking at operating costs as well as investments in capital. For messaging and branding, so again, that connection back to the public and being ambassadors for the park system would be very, very advantageous to the town. And to help us long-term with planning, so reviewing and amending the master plans that we already have in place, the parks master plan, greenways, sidewalks master plans, we have those documents, so reviving those as well and being sure that we are following along or that conditions haven't changed sufficiently that we need to amend those in a big way going forward. How will the board be formed? So this will be by appointment from this board, the Board of Commissioners. We're proposing and recommending 7 members with 2 alternates, with the majority of the membership being those who either live in Woodfin or work in Woodfin, but not exclusively Woodfin, because there is subject matter expertise that also is beyond our borders as well. And we are indeed building some regional park assets. We'd be recommending 3-year terms on a staggered basis so we don't turn over the entire board all at once. And then just an idea of who we would want, what types of users or subject matter experts we would like to have on this committee. So as we're accepting applications, we'll be looking for some representation from different professions, whether recreation, engineering, project management. Looking for students, young people would be really welcome on this advisory committee. Parents, so people with families who'd be using the park, people with disabilities, runners, paddlers, cyclists. Also complementary interests. So business people in the community would have business interest in the development of the parks and the maintenance of those parks. So we'd be looking for some of that too. These are questions that we'll be asking. Why are you interested in this particular committee assignment or appointment? We'd be looking for some of these things. If you all are in agreement and if you are ready to take a vote on the formation of the Parks and Greenways Advisory Committee, that will be tonight. We will begin immediately accepting formally applications and soliciting applications. So that's some preliminary discussions with some folks in the community who may have some interest in this. So again, we'll be extending and casting a broad net there is, as we know, a lot of interest in the projects that are going on there right now. So it's a great time to seize on that and to accept applications. Ideally, by this time next month, we'll be bringing to you some recommendations for appointment. And once we have 4 members, so that will be established a quorum, then we go ahead and schedule the first meeting. And the hope is that we can have a couple of meetings in before the May 1st deadline for the Part F grant application. And so that is the extent of what I want to tell you about this. And so if you have questions or comments or something that we should do differently, welcome those.
Any questions for Eric?
I think you did a really good job with writing up what was expected. So I think everybody will know clearly what their role is. So great.
Okay, anybody like to make a motion that we establish this
So moved.
Greenway Advisory Committee?
Yep.
Okay, heard the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Ball's back in your court there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pitch it over to Mr. Stratton. It's your turn, sir.
Thank you, Eric.
Appreciate that.
Mayor, commissioners, you could have made it warmer tonight. All's well at the Woodfin ABC store. The employees are healthy and happy. January sales versus January 2020 were up 45% with an asterisk. The asterisk is that unfortunately for Weaverville, they were shut down for about a week, and we must have served all of Weaverville.
I know you hated that.
Yeah.
Cried all the way to the bank. No, one day was, I think they said 23,000. That was like just before Christmas. But just sort of a heads up, Tammy tells me that things are beginning to show a little sign of slowing down a bit. And the real difficult comparisons on a year-over-year basis are coming up because we're going to hit March. And last March, I think we were up close to 50%. It didn't stay that high after that. And I think the big reason for that was the panic that everybody thought they were going to close the ABC stores permanently. And so there was a big rush, like on toilet paper. But other news, we had our pre-bid meeting last week, and we had 9 contractors show up, which I thought was a great showing. Not only did they show up, but there was a lot of active participation. They hung around for about an hour, pulling out ceiling tiles, looking for supports and how they were going to keep Tammy in business down there while they were doing the construction. But looked like a lot of interest. The bid opening is scheduled for March the 4th. And then we'll know more about the amount of money, whether the amount of money that we've set aside is going to be about right. I got my fingers crossed on that. the, but that's really pretty much it. I mean, things are going well. How COVID plays out, we'll just have to wait and see.
The last time that anything similar to this happened, where the curve for COVID was straight up, and the potential for the curve to go back down when COVID levels itself out, could see a significant decrease in sales.
That's
And the last time that happened was when the Weaverville ABC store opened, and there wasn't an equal and opposite reaction in controlling the cost. And no one involved with it now was involved with it, especially them, but just a word of caution. Because the hours and the sales and everything had to match, and it didn't last time.
Well, I appreciate that. There are a couple of things there. We are reviewing our budget right now. We did this last meeting and decided to take an approach for forecasting maybe 9% growth for the remainder of the fiscal year. That was about what we were doing before we got into the COVID mess.
I don't think you'll see 9% growth, because last year Asheville closed at 7 and you stayed up until 9.
Yeah.
So you had 2 hours of just gangbuster. So I would be surprised if you were able to grow 9% over the loss of those 2 extra additional hours of sales.
Well, now we've lost that.
Right. But there was a window there when you had it.
Right. Well, no,
Those are going to be hard to get over top of.
That is. One other piece of input that I thought was interesting, the Asheville Citizen had an article on the ABC stores, and they were talking about Asheville.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last part of the article, they had a breakdown of where each dollar of revenue went. And the one that caught my eye, the one I wanted to check on, was the only part we've really got much control over, and that's the store expenses, the administration expenses in the store. And Asheville's figure was at 16.5 cents out of every dollar went to that category. Ours is 16.3 cents. And that sort of surprised me, because I thought that because they should have economies of scale, it should cost them less to run their stores, but maybe, I don't know. What do I know?
You would think store, but store to store, and they have a, for lack of a better term, a supervisor.
Yeah.
So that they don't really get the scale of economics, I don't think, because everything's locked in price. You're absolutely right. The controllables are the only thing that save you.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's an interesting business, because it's just one hair short of price fixing. If it isn't price fixing, across the whole state, which saves the consumer in the long run, but it's an interesting business.
Well, one other thing on that, and you'd probably know this, is our working capital requirement has gone up with sales, and that figures, that's in the arithmetic. When our sales drop off, that working capital requirement's going to drop. So we should have a cushion there, shouldn't we?
Working capital, but you're going to have a lot less inventory on hand.
Yeah.
So you're going to require less working capital,
Yes, right.
because your inventory is going to go way down, because your sales are going to go way down, in theory.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Instead of having, maybe you probably got 200-some thousand of inventory right now.
Yeah.
And I'm making this up, 150 on the shelf and 50 in the back.
Right.
We need 150 on the shelf and 5 in the back.
We don't have that much in the back. Right now, you don't have many cases to sit on.
I'm surprised how many liquors you cannot get now. I mean, that always shocks me, that what's in short supply. I mean, you just can't order it.
Yeah.
Nationwide. I mean, it's a strange deal to me.
Well, it started out with
from home drink more though.
Well, it started out with rum, but it rotated around, and the latest was Tennessee whiskey.
And tequila. I know the tequila got hit. $5 tequila ran out. So that's strange business. And when the first real recession hit, everybody traded down from Crown Royal to VO or Seagram 7 or something like that.
Mhm.
This time they went up. and what they, and the quality, the quality of the alcohol they bought. Makes no sense at all to me.
That is interesting.
Stimulus check, one off stimulus
Oh.
check. Government check.
I guess I didn't get mine.
Yeah, probably some of it, definitely.
Well, some of it also was the clientele changed as Asheville closed from 7 to 9, and evidently the 7 to 9 crowd bought more upscale liquor. But it makes sense. I mean, just the customer base changed. My whole business is upside down too now. I mean, I'm up 20% year to date for a year, rolling year.
Great.
So it's been an insane life cycle that we've been through here.
Take out. People are doing
Like
take
pizza
out.
with their alcohol.
I guess so. It's the only thing available is pizza and alcohol. It's their night life now. Interesting. Y'all done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What's his name?
I'll tell you in a minute. In a minute.
Well, good evening again. Quickly on the police report, we'll look at some numbers. As you can see, our total dispatch events or calls for service up about 100 from this time last year. And that goes to show that we have our officers in place who are trained and doing the stuff they need to do. And we actually have some good news on that I'll come back to in a minute. But our officers are out there being more proactive because they've got the training that they need so they can get out there to be more proactive. Citations up, felony drugs slightly down, misdemeanor drugs up. Our crashes, I'm going to keep knocking on whatever I can find, continue to trend down. We again attribute this to reduced morning traffic, school traffic. We'll see what happens with the return to learn that they're phasing in with Woodfin Elementary back in 4 days a week, and the other schools as well. We'll see how that impacts us in the long run. But right now, we're still trending down in crash reports. Investigations, I want to go briefly over investigations. You've got the numbers here. I do want to commend Detective Morrow, even though he's not here this evening, working a very, truthfully, it's a very weighty sex assault case involving a minor. It's one of those that it hits hard when you have to work it, but he did an excellent job. We have a gentleman who was in Alabama, who had been up here, committed whatever acts, and then had left to Alabama. Through his wonderful investigation, his dedicated, tenacious work, we were able to secure a host of felony charges on this individual, have him extradited back to North Carolina, where he's currently in jail awaiting trial. So again, he did a great job on that. And, it's not one of those cases where we'll give much detail about it, especially given the nature of it. But he did put in a lot of work on that, and not only a lot of physical work, but that's a lot of emotional work as well. So that's really what I have on our numbers, our reports. I do want to let you know that on Friday of last week, on Thursday of last week, we finally got the background done for our other sergeant. We gave him a conditional offer of probationary employment, and he will be starting with us in March. We also filled one of our other vacant patrol positions, and that officer will also be starting at the beginning of March. So as of right now, we have one open position for the department. Lieutenant Ammons has some interviews set up for that, and hopefully soon that will be taken care of. Sergeant Ammons told you that one of our officers in here this evening, Andrew Arthur, the new sergeant, is in training. We expect him to finish that up in about, I think that's about 6 to 8 weeks, and then he will be out on his own running one of the night shifts. So that's exciting news for us. trying to think of any other big developments. We got our grant submitted for Governor's Crime Commission, the Burn Jag grant. And now this is the waiting game. We wait on the state, we wait on the federal government or the U.S. Department of Justice to see what award that will be, if they will award that full amount. So it'll be a while till we hear on that one as well. And that's about it. Any questions for me?
How's the dog doing?
Dog's doing well. He barks a lot. We are still trying to find a training course for Officer Myrick. Asheville was going to run one starting next month, actually, and they've postponed that. So now we're looking at other places to see if we can find somewhere to get Chef and Officer Myrick in so that Chef can train Officer Myrick. Any other questions? All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
We had a placeholder for legal, and Joe, nothing to report there. And Public Works, you have your statistics there that Public Works Department has provided. Nothing in particular stood out to Johnny in his preparation of that data. And that, so unless you have any questions there that I can take back or I can answer there on Public Works, we're going to spend some time on that as time goes on with the budget discussion. So we'll come back to operations there. So we've already introduced Sherry. So there she is. She's still with us. She hasn't run out the door yet. Glad to see her. Give you an update on the budget and the status where we are year to date related to our budget. Talked about some new contracts since the last time we met. Talked about the budget process, but also just wanted to put in a plug that, as Adrian mentioned, the recommendation will be coming to separate the Planning and Zoning Board from the Board of Adjustment. And so we are continuing to collect applications or solicit applications for the board there. And we have received, I know we've received one, and I think another one may have come in the mail yesterday. So there's another one that's in the mail, and then there's a third one that a gentleman's inquired about that as well. So on the budget front, again, this is the level at which you adopt the budget on the expenditure side. So this sort of runs consistent with our departments. And there's nothing here that stands out. You'll notice a couple of those items are well under budget. And the community outreach is the first one that would grab your attention too. And we know that we've had to alter our plans and how we actually are providing some assistance to the community on that. The mayor's been working with some community organizers on that too. So there may be some more expenditures in that category in the months to come. Looking in the area of utility assistance in particular has been the focus of those discussions. The only other one that's really under budget, significantly under budget, is the Powell bill, but you'll see the one right above that is streets. And so at the end of the year, we do some juggling around and we put the expenditures where they belong. The Powell bill is the gas tax. It can only be used for certain expenditures from the streets department. And so we look at the end of the year where those expenses have fallen out during the year, and then we adjust those to put those in the right buckets, if you will. So for cash flow, revenues collected, now we have a healthy surplus for the year. Of course, this will be eaten up now as those tax revenues start to dwindle and they're not coming in as much too. So we'll eat into that. But that's primarily why you would see much more revenue over expenditures year to date. Property tax collections is running just about 94% of the budget. So we'll spend some time on that in the next few months also as we look to close out the year. Where will we land? The best news, of course, aside from alcohol sales, is general sales tax and use. So what's returned to the town from the state, we've now exceeded our budget for the year, and we have only half of the year's collection. That's significant. So we'll expect a very healthy surplus there. We're currently about $100,000 over what we budgeted, and budgeted $440,000. So a conservative budget will result in a good outcome for the year. Contracts. So we've entered into contract with Pride staff for temporary staffing. So we do have a lady who is now answering the phone and doing some of the administrative work for us here at Town Hall. We'll continue to keep her employed until we fill the position permanently. We have entered into agreement with Ron Sneed, attorney at law, for some legal representation work. And in the area of land use in particular. We also have a change order for JM Teague Engineering. We're sending them back out for some additional work on the pavement condition. So they've looked at all the segments of streets the town maintains. And so that will come back to us in the form of a report card, if you will. And then we'll talk about how we look over the next 20 years and what expenditures we might expect, how we project that to play out, so we can plan appropriately on that. That about $1,000 change order. And then we have renewed our annual agreement with TSA Choice, who provides our IT and information technology support. We've upgraded the plan. The plan that we had in the past few years was a base level of service, and then for each call that they made, we were charged for each of those. And as we're adding workstations and some more complexity to some of our work, and that may be, I might be to blame for part of that complexity, but anyway, that's happening. And so we're upgrading our level of plan to gold, which is just means we have more access to unlimited calls with no additional costs. There's a few other perks in there too that go along with that higher level of service. There's the contracts. So just being transparent about those. And the final item that I'll talk about for under administration is just the budget calendar. And Jerry alluded to this earlier. And talking with him, would like to take a step away from the regular meeting to talk about some budget items over the next couple of months. And we're working down toward the May 18th date, which is the date that I will bring to you a recommended budget. We will have some back and forth about that between now and then to help inform that recommended budget. And then hopefully you all will adopt that on June the 15th following a public hearing. If not, we have till June 30th to adopt the budget. But we've got lined up for the months of March, April, and May. You'll see breaking it down, and we will schedule these most likely in the afternoon. So there'll be lunch provided, and then we'll have a brief and a happy meeting around budget. In March, we'll look at a 5-year financial forecast. So taking our budget today and then making some assumptions about how those expenses will change over the years and how the revenues will change, and see how that's going to shake out. Because then we want to anticipate the other commitments that we're going to have to the park that we're going to have, and what is that going to look like. It will talk about some capital improvements or capital investments that may be coming up in form of requests over that time too. So we'll take the look at the base budget, and then these are the other items that we need to factor in at some point. And we may shuffle the years around in which years they happen, or the recommendation comes back. So that will be the result of, or that's what I'm hoping to get out of those work sessions and discussions with you all. In April, we'll talk about streets. So the pavement condition survey or assessment, we'll talk about that. We'll spend time on that early April. That'll also be a Tuesday afternoon meeting. And then sanitation, talk about what that might look like in the future, what issues we're facing there, and what pressures we're facing on sanitation. And then stormwater, which may be the biggest issue that we'll want to tackle. In May, then we will look at what is looking like is going to be the expansion budget. So we have a base budget and then expansion, what's new and what are we asking for different next year. So have a little more, little less abstract, a little more specificity than once we get to early May. And then we'll look at the fee schedule for the town, and that will culminate then in the recommended budget on May the 18th. Have a placeholder for an optional budget work session if you so choose, if you need one, if you'd like to have one, June 1st. And that's that on the budget, sort of the planning for the budget.
The zoning meetings will be in addition to these.
Those are the days before. So I think all of those fall on the Monday before those. Yeah. So the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustment meets March the 1st.
No, I mean that Adrian's going to provide. Those workshops.
The workshops, we haven't talked about how we will coordinate that with the workshops. And I think that really will come once a board is seated for each of those two boards too. So she's gathering materials on that. And so I think I understand your question. I'm so sorry. It was, the invitation goes to you all as well,
yes,
right? To attend those. It's for you as well as the other boards.
Right.
So yeah, it might be some busy
Yeah,
Couple of
that's what I
months.
was wondering. So you'll get a calendar for us when you get that ready.
My calendar will be prettier,
Yeah.
more colorful,
I have
much
no
more
doubt.
meaningful for sure. Yeah, the battle. You're just going to concede that. Any questions on the budget calendar, the proposed budget calendar?
Do you have any budget amendment for tonight?
I don't have one tonight.
The reason I asked this first meeting since you've been here when you know that.
I feel a little unprepared not having one in hand. So I apologize for that. Blueway and Greenway. Some changes since the last time we met. We did receive that first transfer of donated funds from Riverlink last month. The naming rights policy is a little more tricky than we had envisioned, and so it's taking a little more time for some attorneys to wade through and be sure that we've got that spelled out appropriately. What I have worked with Garrett on since the last time we met was some of the park elements that might be appropriate for naming. So that there's like a menu and a package that maybe people may actually be donating toward, and then some naming rights associated with those. So there's some devil's in the details on those, but that will come back to you once that is set. And we do want to get that in place before we get much further into the project. We talked about the Parks and Greenways Advisory Committee tonight, and you all approved that. This is an old slide. I didn't update this slide. That's why this one looks like this. So let's see, let me talk to you. Ignore this slide. This is last month. On Silver Line, we had a construction meeting the 26th of January. There was some discussion around the train platform and the handrail. So as a condition of the building permit for that, we needed to figure out how we're going. The county requires either a handrail or some sort of buffer. The platform is less than 30 inches off the ground, so it doesn't require it by code, but I think for this and for a public park, it is quite appropriate to have a handrail there. So there'll be a change.
We'd already decided before we were gonna put a handrail.
There'll be a change order coming back on that. There was, for permitting, there was more work required for the, Stantec is the firm. So it's an environmental, and I forget who, I think it's at the state level, they're requiring an additional hurdle for us to jump there. So that's about a $10,000 cost.
Is that for where they're gonna bring the boats in, or is it
No, it's not that
wetlands?
part. It's more the wetlands or just the drainage.
Yeah.
And I meant to print that out and bring that with me so I'd have more details on that. So that will be.
Should have caught the.
But you've got 2 grants that you could use
We do.
that it was specifically for that, so that.
And there were some changes in staffing at the state level too, that also drove that. Whoever's reviewing that is looking at it a little more stringently. It's not a bad thing. We have the tenant at the Silverline Park building we've worked out an agreement with her so that they'll continue to develop the driveway around the park. So that work will continue. Had a nice meeting with her and the contractor last week. And so that's moving along nicely. Trying to remember, Ronnie, the pirate ship was another item that we talked about during the last construction meeting too. So trying to anticipate it as a climbing hazard. So kids climb. And so is there anything we need to be looking at design wise differently was a discussion point. Riverside Park expansion in the wave. So we did receive our 2 submittals. We've narrowed down to 1 firm. We're continuing to negotiate and work with that firm. They're putting the scope of work together. So since the time that the review team met with that particular firm, I've had another follow-up conversation or 2 with them.
Can you say who the firm is yet?
Equinox is the firm that we're working with right now,
Wonderful.
and the partners that they bring. So it's a team, and so they have identified, I believe, 4 different entities, including themselves. That will be the team that will be working on Riverside Park and the Whitewater Wave. One of those partners is a person that you know is S2O. So Scott Shipley is one of those partners. So he'll be part of this. And so we'll have more details on that as we get that all completed. So I'm caught flat-footed because I don't have my right slide here. Is there anything else on the wave? Any questions that you have on the wave or Riverside Park? Moving along.
You have quite a bit if someone y'all hadn't been down that way, quite a bit of the material delivered down to the Civil Line Park.
And as soon
It's
as,
just been so dry and dusty, can't get much done down there.
not a thing.
Dry and dusty, yeah.
Once
It
we,
was last time I was down there. It's pretty
Yeah.
dry.
no, there's some puddles down there. So
wet.
that's,
Yeah.
They wasn't doing anything.
no, that's another thing that they're able to do. So to help with the daycare, doggy daycare business is to grading a little bit will help with some of the puddling there too, to help her with her customers. She was happy. Once we have the decision made on the hand railing for the train platform, they can pull the permit and get to work on the train platform. So that's upon us. And I got just an hour before I came in here, I have some estimates on that too. And so I'd like to set some time
They
aside.
were full designs you saw, and it's up to the board and you. I particularly didn't like the metal horizontal for the race, and the kids are gonna climb it like a ladder.
Mhm.
And some adults. You know, we'd be scraping and painting all the time. I'm kind of after low maintenance. I like to see, personally, the C design with the cable of horizontal, vertical cable with the wood tops. Should be very little maintenance to that.
And so that'll be what we'll be considering too. So in this package, I haven't looked at the details, but the three of us can spend time on that one and make a decision so we can get that moving. So that's good.
I'll vote with you.
Appreciate your guidance on that one,
Yeah.
Ronnie. And then greenways, really no change there. So continuing to work with the state, the counties continue to work with the state to get that moving. That's not moving just yet. No change on that piece. And same with the budget, no change on the budget. And that's the end of the reports and the regular meeting, unless you all have questions for me.
Why didn't your TVs work? Okay, I just wondered.
There's one in a box over there. So that's the answer to one.
Okay,
The other one, I'm not,
next month they'll work,
or they'll be gone.
or they'll be gone. Okay, well,
So we have to come take them back.
What time did you say the March 2nd meeting was?
What,
March 2nd meeting, what time?
we haven't set a time. It'll start around lunchtime though. So it'll be either 12 or 12:30 in that area or that neighborhood, and then run to the afternoon for a few hours.
Okay.
If there's anything we need to work around, please let me know.
Okay.
on that too.
No, that's fine.
And so we'll put a notice out for that because that'll be a public meeting as well. Not necessarily one we'll take public comment on most likely. Work sessions generally don't have that type of an agenda. But it's more for informal discussion is what the intent is for that.
I'm open from 11 to 1.
That's it, the end, if we want you. So we'll start at 1 then?
That sounds good. I'll already be in a meeting. Sounds fine. I got enough to do.
All right, thank you for that. Mr. Mayor, I think we have some legal matters to discuss in closed session.
Okay, anybody got anything else to come before the board? One thing, I got an email today from Land of the Sky. Some of you may have known Marshall's Mayor Jack Wallen, who passed away yesterday. And also former Weaverville Mayor Bet Stroud passed away. So I didn't know Mr. Wallen, but I did know Bet pretty well. So keep those families in your thoughts and prayers. With that, we're going to have a executive session, discuss some legal matters. We have a motion to adjourn this meeting and go into closed session.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
You don't have to get up.
I got to go stretch my legs.